Before we begin, thank you very much to a Super Muffin for joining the Patreon campaign. Thank you guys very much. Thank you so much for contributing. That was a top tier, so you do get to make a video request of me. I believe I've already seen it, so we will see when that ends up in the rotation. So thank you for that. Do appreciate it. A lot of people making those like video request donations. And remember, once I do your request, if you're still part of it, you can make another request. You know, as soon as I'm done with one, you're due for another. So it's a continuous thing. So your first one will be coming relatively, hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. The schedule is kind of like all over the place right now. But today we're going on the last part of the Synergenex Transformer announcements that really had me buzzing, and that was the announcement of Zoids Transformers. These are brands that Takara Tomy have owned together for a while now, and why didn't we do this sooner? Why was this not a thing already? So the one you see on screen right now, you know, the Shield D Prime, is already like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It's the Shield Liger from Chaotic Century and Optimus Prime merged into one, and it looks like it's going to be the coolest thing ever. The Diaclone part is frightening because Diaclone is super expensive, but hopefully that's just a pilot compatibility thing and not we're going to charge you Diaclone prices for this. Regardless, it did put me in the idea, like, since there's technically no licensing going on here, this is something that Takara Tomy can do however often they want. And judging from how Monster Hunter Zoids worked out and sold, seeing the excitement that people have for these, I get the good feeling this is going to work. I get a good feeling that we are going to get more than one of these. So now it's just a question of who and what. So this video is for people who are not up on their Zoids, the Transformer fans out there who are wondering what cool designs could we see our favorite Transformer characters as. So for the sake of this list, I'm focusing on the big name characters, the major characters only. I am focusing away from anyone Beast-based, because doing the Beast Wars cast as Zoids is way, way, way too easy. So we're not going to go that route. Instead, we are going to speculate on who is next. And if we have an Optimus Prime, who is going to be the Megatron? So this is probably the next one that's going to happen no matter what, because you can't have an Optimus without a Megatron somewhere. And if we're doing the Shield Liger, then it has to be the Genosaur. This is the rival from Chaotic Century. One of them. Okay, I will admit, the Genosaur evolves as the series goes on. It constantly gets rebuilt. So you've got a Mark II, you've got the Geno Breaker, the final form. But for now, I think just Genosaur as a black-styled Megatron, I think that is absolutely the way to go. That makes the most sense, both for Zoids fans and Transformer fans, so that's perfect. That also gives us a lovely opportunity. Let's go to Season 3. I'm focusing on major leader characters for the start of this video, and that does lead us to Galvatron. And again, basing off the Genosaur, we have someone who is perfect for the role, who kind of looks like a reformatted and upgraded Genosaur. That is the Berserk Fury. I love this thing. I know a lot of people online have already penciled the Berserk Fury in as like the Megatron choice, but the pale lavender color I think is going to work really, really well with the purple Galvatron colors that are going to pop in when he transforms. And I think the big fusion like the big, like railgun type, like hyper laser things, I can't remember the name of them, but those big things that are hanging off his back are essentially just gigantic, like maser cannon style weapons. They fire big energy beams. That's also a Galvatron thing as much as it is a Megatron. And if Galvatron's supposed to be a more powerful Megatron, a Berserk Fury is supposed to be a more powerful Genosaur. So that makes all the sense in the world to me. You might be saying, as a Zoids fan, since the Berserk Fury was a New Century thing, the first Zoids that we saw on Toonami back in the day, by the way, that would mean that Rodimus Prime would have to come from the Liger Zero, potentially the most popular of all the Zoids. And you know what? No. We're not doing Rodimus as the Liger Zero. Number one, because a big thing that I was focused on when I was coming up with this list was character identity. Not only does it work as like the Transformer character, I wanted to make sure it worked as a Zoids character as well. I wanted to keep the repainting to an absolute minimum. So Liger Zero as a white Rodimus Prime is not really my vibe, but if the previous Liger, the Shield Liger, is going to be Optimus, that would make Liger Zero Ultra Magnus. And now, this is kind of obvious, okay. Yeah, it's just, you know, he's going to transform the same. He's going to be the white Magnus, the inner robot thing, right? I have a trick. Zoids fans know, Transformer fans don't. The gimmick to the Liger Zero is that a bunch of his armor panels can come off and be replaced with new ones, you know? And it focuses on different things. Speed, firepower, melee attack. You know, there's different abilities depending on which one that they go for. You know, and there's the Panzer, there's the Schneider, or there is the Jaeger. It's a blue armor set, which means this is absolutely Ultra Magnus. And we can extend that armor to work in the robot to even invoke the natural Ultra Magnus armor set. You could have a fold-out helmet from the blue Jaeger parts to create Magnus's helmet and complete the full transformation. This is one of those ideas of sheer brilliance that I absolutely love when I have. I think this is the best idea in the whole video, and I should have saved it till the end, but I'm going to do it now. I'm going to do it 7 minutes into the video just to keep you on your toes. That does leave a lingering string. Now, what do we do with Rodimus Prime? If Galvatron's going to be in here, I want a Rodimus Prime in this toy lineup as well. I have the solution, and guess what? We can stay in the Liger family to do it. Because while the Shield Liger, and thus Blade Liger, and then Liger Zero are the most famous of all of them, there is also something called an Energy Liger, and tell me that's not Rodimus Prime. Tell me that is not Rodimus Prime to a freaking T. It's absolutely perfect. It's an absolutely perfect transition. I don't know if we'll get 3 Ligers in the same toy line, but like this as just like a core block of 5 leader characters, all taking the Soarers and the Ligers, I think is a perfect little capsule. If those were just the only 5 we got, I think the line would be absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. That said, we can absolutely go farther. How about our boy Bumblebee? I was so tempted to give him an insect form, but I realized, like, copyright-wise, you can't do that. And I also realized that he is going to be more akin to the more modern Bumblebee, where he's not the little scout that gets captured half the time. He's going to be the action hero Bumblebee that he is in most of the cartoons and movies today. So that means we have to give him a more powerful form. And because he is something of like a second to Prime, I do want him to be a similar form, but toned down a little bit, which is where we find the Fang Tiger. And I love this mode for him. Inversely, we can also use this one if we wanted to give Bumblebee something a little bit smaller and cuter, because there are little bug Zoids that he could be. What if we actually also made this like Sunstreaker? We could absolutely make this Sunstreaker instead and keep like the Zoids of this size to like the larger, like physically larger Transformer characters. And that would mean Saber Tiger here, we could use for Sideswipe. So we have brother tigers on the team. Or going back to the original idea of using that for Bumblebee, that would make this one Cliffjumper. We have both options on the table here. I think both of them would work. You're more likely to see Bumblebee in this line than you are Sunstreaker, because Bumblebee, sales figures, but with some retooling and new paint, yeah, like they could absolutely do Fang Tiger and Saber Tiger at the same time and just give us Bumblebee Cliffjumper out of one mold. I would not be shocked for them to do that. We're going to do an obvious one now, because we have to get an obvious one out of the way. Here's Grimlock. I did say I was going to avoid the Beast characters, but Grimlock kind of transcends that a little bit. you kind of have to do a Grimlock in this kind of line because name value, popularity, etc., etc. And we have plenty of T-Rexes to pick from, but it's going to be the Gojulas. It's absolutely going to be the Gojulas. Ironically, the natural color scheme being that of Overkill, but we're not going to get a Zoid out of the little cassette figure. This is close enough that I would be okay making this Grimlock. You know, if you just show a little bit of gold and red once it transforms into robot mode, I'll accept the rest. You know, it will be close enough for me to accept it as a Grimlock type. But you just look at it and go, yeah, like that looks like a Grimlock. Even though it is inspired by Godzilla, so this is technically closer than the actual Godzilla Grimlock toy. No, I will not get over that. I absolutely will not. That will stick in my craw forever. Okay, a few more characters here. I want to make this a little bit of a short video because I'm kind of time crunched today. And I know a lot of people out there aren't going to know that much about Zoids, so this might be a low-click video. So just in case, we're going to keep it on the low side today. But we're going to continue here. Soundwave. The trick here is you're not going to get the gimmick to work. You're not going to get a Soundwave that has little Zoids popping out of his chest. I looked it up. I couldn't find a Zoid where that made sense. There is a, there is a hover cargo, which is just like a snail Zoid. And technically that would work, but it would only work in the beast mode because it uses the entirety of the shell to store smaller Zoids, like little raptors and things. So that only works to a degree. I wouldn't be able to transform the Soundwave with one of those. Also, I think it'd be much more funny if we turn that big snail shell into Cosmos and make that a thing. But that goes against my color scheme thing. And when I looked at color scheme and what could transform into Soundwave and still look like the Zoid and Soundwave at the same time, I came across the Death Stinger. Look at it. It's perfect. You've got the silver, you got the blue, you got the traces of red. Granted, a Scorpion's probably not the first thing you're going to think of when you think of Soundwave. However, I do think it's more akin to some of the flat spaceships that he's had as an alt mode more recently. He's getting another one in Transformers 1, so they're trying to establish that a little bit more as a thing. I think if you look at the Bumblebee version, like with the feet like at the front and the flat body, you get a little bit of bug to him. You get a little bit of that flat bug to him. So this is not too much of a stretch for my imagination. Again, color identity is really key here, and this is spot on. This will look like Soundwave and Death Stinger at the same time. That's what's important here. We move on to Shockwave now. And Shockwave I wanted to be a little bit more fun because there wasn't really anything that lent itself to a Cyclops. But I did have a cool idea here that I really liked, and it's called Elephander. Color scheme works. Color scheme works for this. Also, I've got the Prime or Dark of the Moon Soundwave in my head where it's asymmetrical and his gun hand is actually a full cannon arm. So I'm imagining that trunk bulked up into the point where it does pass for an entire arm. So the snout does become like his main gun hand. And then the ears and the tusks fold up to make this really beefy, spiky shoulder on the one left side. That's also going to force them to avoid the whole, the front legs become the arms of the robot mode. So this one would force itself to be a little bit different in engineering. I think it would work. Also, just every now and then, I kind of like beefy, tanky Shockwave, because it's been a while since we had one. That one works for me. We need Seekers. We need Seekers. So Starscream. Now here's the one. Here's where I have to cheat a little bit. You're not going to get a Zoid. You're not going to get an aerial Zoid that just happens to come in gray, blue, and black to get the trio of Seekers out. It's hard to find an interesting looking one even in gray. I did come across a Zoid called a Rainos, which does pass for Thundercracker in its normal colors, and the whole idea of it, aside from it being a pterosaur of some sort, it's also supposed to invoke a jet. You can see the tail fins that a jet would have. The numbering and striping on the wings, the way a jet would have. When it flies in the anime, it's very flattened out. It looks like a jet in flight. Perfect choice for our Seekers. Absolutely perfect choice. We have to fudge the colors, but no matter which one we went with, we were going to have to fudge at least 2 of them. So I will accept the fact that this is definitely a Thundercracker color scheme. But we will have to just kind of like accept the fact that it's going to be inaccurate for the other Seekers. To finish us out here, I'm just going to go through a bunch of Zoids just so non-Zoids people, just so Transform fans can see some other potentials that we might have at some point if this line does well enough. We have something called a Command Wolf, which I think would make for a very lovely take on Prowl. Again, fudge the colors for Smokescreen and Blue Streak, but I think it would absolutely work. There's another wolf that there's another one I really like, which is the Shadow Fox, which I think that's animated Prowl. We're never going to get to the point where they're actually doing animated Zoids characters. That's not going to be a thing. I threw this one in just for fun because that is spot on animated Prowl. Yeah, it would be amazing. There's things called gun snipers, which are just little raptors. They're more common units. They're smaller. They're generally like scouts and pack creatures. So this is your reflector, right? Altered color scheme again, but they would pattern themselves after the way reflector behaves. So you just have hordes of these running around. We have something called an Iron Kong, our Gorilla Zoid. And if that's not an Ironhide, I don't know what is. This one, I think there's enough red where you could fudge the color, the transformation to create more red visually as he turns into a robot. So you could get that character in this design without going like we're just making the monkey red now. I think that could work. And I'm going to throw Zoids fans one bone here at the very end. Just here at the end. Yes, Death Soarer is a thing and he would make an excellent Trypticon. He wouldn't have a robot mode, but this is something where I would fully accept a big battle station in lieu of that. For those who didn't watch the animes, Death Soarer is gigantic. So yeah, that is actually a pretty perfect choice for a Trypticon. And that's going to be my last choice, because this could go on all day. Because then we're going to start getting into Beast Cast, which, that's one-to-one connections between, what's a Rhinozoid? That's Rhinox. That's easy. I don't want to get to that point. I also don't want to recast the entirety of Generation 1 just for the sake of this little idea. I'm just throwing out these fun little connections and these possibilities to show you that, yeah, like, there's a lot of potential here. This could go on for a while if it's successful. And these are the cool designs that we could have as Transformers someday if this continues. To my Zoids fans out there, I will leave you with a challenge because it stumped me. Because there is one character I would have loved to have worked into this, but I didn't know a Zoid that would really work well for it. Tell me who RC would transform into. Because Zoids is a very boy-centric toy line. Good luck finding a pink Zoid amongst the mix. That might be out there, but it's not one I'm aware of. So I'm leaving Zoids fans to fill in the blank for me. And I am going to end it off there. So, as always, thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I deeply appreciate it. And as always, I will see you next time.